It was 3:14 a.m. when my phone buzzed like a siren, slicing through the darkness of my small apartment. Half asleep, I blinked at the screen, expecting a random spam notification or a late-night meme from a friend. Instead, the message burned through the brightness like a blade. Mom, send $15,000 by Friday. Non-negotiable. Before I could even process it, another message dropped seconds later. Mom, you're not invited if you can't support family. I sat up straight, my chest tightening. The room felt smaller, the shadows closing in as the meaning sank in. This wasn't a joke. I scrolled up the family group chat, the one where my parents and brother had been buzzing all week about wedding plans. Confetti gifts, champagne emojis, dream wedding messages from relatives. Then I saw it. Photos of a luxury vineyard, a catering quote, a deposit slip with my brother's name at the top, and right beneath that, silence. That kind of silence where every typing bubble stops the moment you enter the chat. I typed, "Why am I getting a demand for $15,000? No one responded. Just that haunting scene icon under my message. A few minutes later, my dad texted me privately. His tone was as cold and sharp as ever. Dad, this is what real brothers do. Don't make this harder. I stared at the screen, trying to calm the heartbeat in my throat. I worked 2 jobs just to stay ahead on rent and student loans. $15,000 wasn't a gift. It was everything I had scraped together over 8 months. Emergency savings gone in one swipe. I texted back, I don't have that kind of money. I'm barely getting by. His reply came instantly. Dad, you always have excuses. We're done arguing. You either support your family or you don't belong at this wedding. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then my phone buzzed again, a Venmo request. From Mom, $15,000. For love. I laughed once, hollow and bitter. Then another notification popped up, a screenshot of the official guest list for my brother's wedding. My name crossed out in red. That's when the anger hit, hot and electric. But beneath it, something else stirred. Fear. A whisper that wouldn't quiet down. They're hiding something. I'd learned long ago that my parents only got this desperate when something bigger was at stake. This wasn't just about the wedding. I could feel it in my gut, the kind of tension that hummed underneath every forced smile and fake family-first speech they'd ever given. I opened the shared family cloud drive, the one Mom and Dad used to store important documents. Normally, it was full of boring PDFs, tax forms, family recipes, scanned photos. But that night, a new folder had appeared. Event docs, it felt like bait. I clicked anyway. Inside were invoices, vendor contracts, and spreadsheets labeled with payment plans. My eyes flicked down the list until one file name froze me. Grant deed transfer final PDF. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. The document showed a property transfer. Grandma's lake house. The one she'd promised would always be mine. The one where I'd learned to swim, where she'd told me stories by the fireplace about keeping what's yours. My name was there, but struck through in black. The new owner line listed my brother's name, and at the bottom of the page in bright red ink circled like a curse, effective date, wedding day. My chest went cold. This wasn't a coincidence. The timing, the money demand, the guest list ban, it was all connected. I scrolled down to the signature section. Mom's name, Dad's name, even a notary stamp that looked official enough to fool anyone who didn't look twice. But there was a final line beneath them that made my pulse stop. Grantor heir. My full name. Signature pending. I hadn't signed anything. So how were they planning to finalize it? A chill ran down my spine. That's why they wanted me there. Or not there. The $15,000 wasn't a contribution, it was leverage. They didn't just want my money, they wanted my consent. I closed the document and scrolled through the rest of the folder, my hands trembling. Hidden inside was another file labeled Vendor Collateral Agreement. The fine print mentioned the property being used as security for wedding expenses. They were putting the house, my house, on the line for a party. I leaned back on the bed, my throat tight. Grandma's voice echoed in my head. Never let anyone buy your silence. That's when my phone buzzed again. A notification from the same cloud drive. Someone was editing the folder in real time. I watched as the file name changed right before my eyes, from grant deed transfer final PDF to signed version ready.pdf. My hands shook. They were doing it now. Another message came through from Mom. "You'll understand after Saturday." "Don't make this ugly," I didn't reply. I just sat there, heart pounding, staring at the reflection of my phone screen in the dark window. My own face looked like a stranger's, pale, furious, scared. Something inside me shifted that night. A quiet resolve hardened beneath the fear. They had crossed a line, and this time I wasn't going to beg for a seat at their table. As I scrolled back to the last page of the document, my name sat there like an open wound. Grantor heir, my full name, signature pending. I whispered to myself, not anymore. Because if they thought I was just going to watch them steal what Grandma left me, they were about to learn what family betrayal really costs. By noon the next day, I was running on 2 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline. The $15,000 demand hadn't just shaken me. It had detonated something. I needed answers, real ones. I started making calls. The first was to the wedding caterer, pretending to be handling payments for the family. The woman on the other end sounded cheerful, too cheerful for someone about to ruin my morning. She said, "Oh, you're the one listed on the collateral, right? The lake property? That's so generous of you." I froze mid-sentence. "Collateral?" I repeated. She laughed like it was obvious. "Yes, the lake house. It's common with large weddings when families want to show commitment to the vendors. Keeps everyone honest." I hung up before she could finish her sales pitch. My hands were sweating. "Collateral? For flowers? For food? For a photo booth?" It didn't make sense. I called the florist next, and when I mentioned my name, there was a pause followed by, "Oh, you're the property contact. We've already submitted the lien waiver." Lien waiver. That phrase stabbed through me. They weren't just using the house as security, they'd put it in writing. I tried the DJ next. He didn't seem suspicious, just confused. "Hey man, your mom said to confirm the ceremonial signing segment, midnight, right after the last dance." My voice cracked. "Ceremonial signing?" He chuckled. Yeah. Something symbolic. She said it's a family thing. Gold pen, stage lights, slideshow of old family photos. The caption was supposed to read, "New Beginnings." Sounds nice, right? Nice, sure. If new beginnings meant watching my inheritance evaporate under spotlights. Every nerve in my body screamed that something was off. Dangerously off. I drove straight to the county clerk's office. The waiting room smelled like dust and regret. I told the clerk I needed to check property transfer appointments for Parcel 17, Grandma's lake house. She typed for a while, then frowned. "There's a pending appointment for a quitclaim deed. Scheduled Saturday morning." My pulse spiked. "Who's listed?" She squinted at the screen. 2 signatories, your parents and 1 more marked as required. Your full name." My stomach dropped. Saturday morning, the same day as the wedding. My signature was required, but I was banned from attending. If I wasn't there, the transfer would fail automatically. They'd need a backup plan. And I suddenly understood what that plan might be. A forged signature, hidden under the excuse of some symbolic ceremony. I stepped outside into the blinding sunlight, trying to steady my breathing. The whole family unity narrative had been a smokescreen. They weren't asking me to contribute. They were pushing me out of the way to finalize a theft. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally I would have ignored it, but something in my gut told me to pick up. A text blinked onto the screen. "We need to talk before Saturday. It's about you." The message was from the bride, my brother's fiancée, Hannah. We'd barely spoken before. Attached was a screenshot of what looked like a bank document, a payment memo linking my full legal name to the wedding's event insurance policy. And there it was again, my social security number. I stared at it until the numbers burned into my eyes. I hadn't applied for any insurance. I hadn't signed anything. Yet somehow, my identity had been woven into this wedding like invisible thread. A second text followed. "I found something weird in the prenup. Your parents added a clause saying if you gift $15,000 for the wedding, you waive any claim to the lake house. They said you already agreed." My lungs forgot how to work. I scrolled through the message again and again, hoping I'd misread it. But no, there it was. They were using a fake gift to legally erase my rights to Grandma's house. I called Hannah immediately. She answered in a whisper. "They think I don't know," she said. Your mom added that clause in a version of the prenup your brother never read. I only saw it because I wanted a copy for my lawyer. Her voice shook. I didn't want to believe it until I saw your name on the insurance forms. I rubbed my face, trying to keep from shouting in the middle of the parking lot. Why would they even do this? It's just a house. It's not just a house, she said quietly. Your mom told my mom it's the only guarantee your family has left. She said once you sign, everything will be safe. Before I could ask what safe meant, another notification appeared at the top of my screen. An email. The subject line made my blood turn to ice. Voice memo, your mom. It was from the private investigator I'd hired 2 days earlier, a desperate move after sensing something sinister in those contracts. My thumb hesitated before I hit play. Mom's voice filled my ear, cold and controlled. Once he signs, the house is safe. If he refuses... There was a pause, a scrape of paper. We used the old proof. The message ended with a faint shuffle and her whisper, almost too soft to catch. He doesn't know who he really is. For a long moment, I just stood there in the parking lot, the world tilting under me. The phrase looped in my head like a curse. He doesn't know who he really is. What old proof? What secret could possibly justify stealing everything Grandma left me? The breeze carried the sound of church bells from somewhere far off, faint, mocking. I realized the clock had started ticking. They weren't just planning a wedding. They were planning a cover-up, and whatever proof Mom mentioned, that was the key. It wasn't just about the lake house anymore. It was about me. The cafe was louder than I expected. Coffee grinders screamed, milk steamed, and every table hummed with people pretending not to eavesdrop. Hannah, my brother's fiancée, sat in the corner, her engagement ring missing, her eyes red and restless. When I slid into the seat across from her, she didn't even say hello. She just whispered, "Your brother is sweet, but your parents, they're not telling the truth." Her voice trembled, but her hands were steady as she pushed a folded document across the table. It was the prenup addendum, the same one she'd texted about. In the smallest, meanest print imaginable were the words that gutted me. In exchange for a $15,000 family gift, my name agrees he is not an heir to property described as Parcel 17, Grand Lake. I read it twice, then a third time, hoping the letters would rearrange into something sane. They didn't. My parents hadn't just tried to manipulate me. They had legally attempted to erase me. Hannah took a shaky breath and pulled out her phone. There's more. She hit play on an audio file. My mom's voice came first, low and sharp, like she was used to giving orders people didn't dare question. Once he signs, the house is safe. If he refuses... There was a pause, then a rustle of papers. We pull the hospital file. That ends this. Hospital file? I repeated, feeling my stomach twist. Hannah nodded slowly. I heard her say it twice. Switch, papers, keep it buried. Your dad said, "It saved us once, it'll save us again." I don't know what that means, but they sounded scared. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the hiss of the espresso machine. Then I muttered, "It means they've been hiding something for a long time." I stepped out into the parking lot, the sunlight stabbing my eyes. My thoughts were a blur of suspicion and disbelief. Grandma's voice echoed in my mind. Blood doesn't always run the way people think. I used to believe she meant that family was chosen, not inherited. But now, her words felt like a riddle, one that warned me this very moment was coming. I got into my car, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I called the hospital she'd delivered me at, the same one from my old baby photos. The clerk on the other end sounded polite but distant. "Do you have a case number?" she asked. "We can't search medical records without that." "I just need to confirm if there's any record correction or adoption file from 1994, I said. "Name's my full name. Parents, Mark and Ellen." She cut me off with a pause. "Hold, please." I waited through a minute of silence that felt like an hour. When she came back, her tone had changed. "I can't discuss this without proper authorization," she said carefully. "But it looks like a restricted record. That's... unusual." My heart pounded. "Restricted how?" "I'm sorry, I really can't say more." And then she hung up. I sat there in the car, staring at nothing. Restricted record, hospital file, switch. It all tangled together in a sickening loop. I was starting to realize that whatever old proof my parents were threatening to use wasn't about money. It was about identity. My phone vibrated violently in the cup holder. A notification flashed across the screen. "You've been served." A man in a cheap suit appeared at my window before I could even roll it down fully. "Are you my full name?" he asked. I nodded numbly, and he handed me a thick manila envelope. "You've been served," he said, turning on his heel. Inside was an emergency motion filed by my parents' lawyer. They were petitioning to have me declared estranged. If granted, it would strip me of standing in any real estate or inheritance disputes. The hearing was set for Saturday, 10 a.m., the same morning as the wedding. They wanted me legally erased and socially exiled on the same day. I called Hannah again. "They're moving fast," I said. "I told you," she whispered. "They'll do anything to protect themselves. Whatever's in that hospital file, they think it's enough to destroy you." She reached across the cafe table earlier that day, gripping my hand so tight I could feel the panic in her pulse. "Don't go alone to that hearing," she'd said. "I won't," I'd promised. Now I dialed the county investigator who'd been reviewing the deed scans for me. He answered on the first ring. "I just finished my review," he said without preamble. "Your notary? Fake. License expired 3 years ago. The stamp's forged. That document is worthless." I felt my chest loosen for the first time in days. "So they can't transfer the house?" "Not legally," he said. "But if they present that fake deed at the clerk's office before you contest it, they might get a temporary transfer. You need to show up in person." He hesitated before adding, "I'll be at the venue, just in case." I hung up, but before I could even breathe, a new message buzzed onto my screen. "Mom, come to the church at 11. Sit in the back. I'll hand you an envelope that explains everything. If you open your mouth before you read it, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." I stared at those words, my heart hammering in my ears. She wasn't denying anything. She was orchestrating it. The church, the timing, all of it was part of the same twisted puzzle. I looked out the window toward the setting sun, and for the first time I wasn't angry. I was done being shocked, done being scared. They thought I'd stay silent while they buried me in lies. But this time, I wouldn't be walking into their trap as a victim. I'd be walking in as a witness. The courtroom felt like a furnace. Every fluorescent light hummed like static. Every breath I took burned my throat. My parents sat across the aisle dressed like saints at a funeral, their lawyer perfectly composed beside them. I could feel their eyes on me, sharp, rehearsed, almost daring me to crumble. The judge, an older man with steel gray hair and eyes that saw through performance, flipped through the documents in silence. Their attorney spoke first, his voice smooth and poisonous. "Your Honor, this is a family matter gone out of proportion. My clients have attempted to help their son countless times. He's chosen estrangement, he's refused family reconciliation, and he's spreading malicious rumors regarding property that doesn't even belong to him." I clenched my fists under the table. "That property was left to me by my grandmother," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. "They're using forged documents to steal it." The lawyer smirked, sliding a paper toward the judge. "Baseless, Your Honor. Here's the deed transfer." That was when I stood up and handed over the investigator's notarized report. "That notary stamp expired 3 years ago. The license number belongs to a deceased county clerk." The judge adjusted his glasses, studied the document, and the air shifted. Just enough for me to feel it. He looked up, his tone suddenly clipped. "Mr. and Mrs. Gore's last name, is there any reason this report shouldn't concern me?" My mother's face went pale. My father spoke too quickly. "We must have been misinformed." "Misinformed?" The judge's voice cut through the air. "That's forgery. You're lucky I'm only issuing a temporary injunction today." He signed the paper with a sharp stroke of his pen. "Effective immediately, no transfers or transactions involving Parcel 17. Any attempt to do so will result in criminal penalties." "Understood?" They didn't answer. They didn't have to. Their silence was louder than guilt. I walked out of the courthouse with the order burning hot in my jacket pocket. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of power, thin, trembling, but real. Outside, the county investigator leaned against his car. "You did good," he said. "But don't relax. They'll try something at that wedding." "I know," I said quietly. "I'm going." By the time I reached the church, the sun was already sliding down the horizon, throwing streaks of gold across the parking lot. The investigator followed in his unmarked sedan, parking a few rows behind. I checked my phone, a message from Hannah. "2 cameras on the stage are HDMI in. If you need to show anything, we can." Inside, violins floated through the air, soft and brittle like glass. White roses lined every pew, candles flickered beside framed engagement photos, and a chandelier blazed overhead. Too bright, too pure for what was about to unfold. I searched for my seat, but there was no card with my name. When I asked the usher, he hesitated, his polite smile cracking. Sorry. The family said you'd prefer to stand." "Of course they did." I stood in the back, half shadowed by a column, watching my brother at the altar, his nervous smile trying to hide the chaos that had no idea was brewing behind him. My mother moved down the side aisle, her posture calm but her eyes darting like a cornered animal's. When she reached me, she didn't speak, just slipped a small, thick envelope into my palm. "Read it before you do anything," she whispered, her voice trembling just enough to sound human again. I caught a glimpse of my father in the front pew, jaw tight, fingers clenched on his knee. His face was the same one he'd used my whole life, the mask that said, "I'm in control." But this time, he wasn't. The officiant's voice rose above the music. "We are gathered here today to celebrate the union of..." The words faded behind the thudding in my chest. Sweat beaded on my temples. The envelope in my hand felt like it was pulsing. When the vows began, I couldn't even hear them. I was too focused on that envelope. The edges were creased, the paper thick. Something metallic rattled faintly inside. My thoughts tangled. Was this another trick? A final manipulation? Or was this the truth Mom claimed would destroy everything if spoken aloud? The officiant's voice softened. "If anyone has reason these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now." Every muscle in my body tensed. The moment stretched like an eternity. The violinist holding a long note, the congregation shifting, my pulse roaring in my ears. I could end this right here, expose them, burn their lies in front of everyone. But something inside me, that old ache of wanting answers, made me slide a finger under the flap instead. Inside the envelope was a faded hospital bracelet, the kind they wrap around newborn wrists. My name wasn't on it. It was a code number. Beneath it was a yellowed photo, a newborn baby, tagged with the same number. And then, beneath that, a single-page document brittle at the edges. At the top, Certificate of Live Birth. Correction. My breath caught. I scanned the form, my date of birth, the hospital, the signature line. But the section that stopped my heart was Mother's name. It didn't say Ellen, last name. It said Hazel, last name. My grandmother. A sticky note in my mother's familiar handwriting clung to the corner of the page. Your grandmother wasn't just your grandmother. The room tilted. I could feel every eye on me, though no one had turned yet. My fingers trembled, the words swimming in my vision. My mind replayed every memory, every lullaby Grandma ever hummed. Every time she'd said my boy, every long silence between her and Mom. Across the aisle, the investigator caught my eye and gave a slow, knowing nod. He'd seen the document from where he stood. He already understood. The officiant smiled, oblivious. "Forever hold your peace," or I didn't hear the rest. My body moved before my mind caught up. I stepped into the aisle, my voice cutting through the music like a blade. "Stop!" Every head turned. Cameras froze mid-pan. The violinist's bow screeched off key. On the stage, one of the giant HDMI screens flickered, first black, then blue, then a paused video frame appeared. The title read, Hazel Lake and Last Will. And then, as the church held its breath, Grandma's face filled the screen. "Hi, sweetheart," Grandma's voice echoed through the church speakers, soft but steady, as her face filled the twin HDMI screens. Her hair was grayer than I remembered, her eyes tired but unflinching. "If you're watching this," she began, "it means our family has done something cruel." The room went still. You could hear the air conditioning hum and the faint whimper of someone near the front row. Grandma's eyes seemed to look right at me. "You were born on a storm night," she said. "We made a terrible choice to hide a worse one. Your mother was 16. She was scared. So I did what I thought would save her life. And maybe ruin yours." The crowd gasped, a low human sound that rippled through the pews. I saw Mom gripping the edge of the pew so hard her knuckles turned white. Dad's face was frozen, but his eyes darted, searching for a way to stop the inevitable. Grandma went on, her voice faltering but determined. "I signed the first birth certificate as your grandmother." "That was a lie." "I am your mother. Your mother, my daughter, agreed we would raise you as hers so she could finish school and survive the shame. I told myself we'd fix it when you were old enough to understand, but every year it got harder. The lie grew too big to touch. I felt my knees weaken, my heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted out. Every memory of Grandma's arms around me, the lullabies, the quiet nights by the lake, her calling me my boy with a tenderness no grandparent should ever carry. All of it rearranged itself into something I didn't know how to name. The people in the pews turned toward Mom. She was shaking her head, tears streaming freely now. "No," she whispered. "I tried to tell him." But the video kept rolling. Grandma's eyes glistened as she took a deep breath. "I planned to tell you on your 18th birthday. I wrote you letters I never sent, but I never stopped protecting what was meant to be yours. The lake house wasn't just property. It was my promise to you. It was proof that you were always wanted, always loved." She paused, her gaze steady. "I bought it in your name for when you were ready to stand on your own. No one else has the right to take it from you." The camera angle shifted, showing an attorney beside her holding up documents. His voice filled the church next. "This video is accompanied by a notarized will and recorded deed, naming my full name as the sole heir and rightful owner of Parcel 17. Grand Lake. Any attempt to transfer ownership without his signature is null and void under state law." A collective gasp swept through the audience. Behind me, I heard the county investigator's footsteps echo down the aisle. He stepped forward, holding the judge's restraining order high in the air. "Your Honor's order stands," he announced to the crowd, voice firm. "This deed is fraudulent. The notary on your documents is under investigation for forgery." The fake notary, a man in an ill-fitting suit near the back, tried to slip out, but 2 deputies intercepted him before he reached the door. The clatter of handcuffs snapped through the silence like thunder. On the altar, Hannah, the bride, turned to my brother. Her bouquet trembled in her hands. "You knew about this?" she whispered. He shook his head helplessly, eyes wide and wet. "I didn't, I swear." Mom broke down then, her voice cracking. "I wanted to tell you. We were drowning in debt. The college fund, the medical bills, the house taxes, we couldn't keep up. The wedding was supposed to be a restart. We thought if you signed it, if we transferred it, we could fix everything." "Fix?" I cut her off, my voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "You tried to erase me." Dad stood then, his composure shattering. "We did what we had to. You don't understand what it's like to hold this family together." But his words sounded small now, pathetic under the weight of the truth crackling through the room. I faced them both, my hands shaking but my voice steady. "You demanded $15,000 to buy my silence. You banned me from the wedding so I couldn't stop you. You used my name, my social security number, my life, all to cover up your lies." Hannah stepped forward, voice trembling but resolute. "I can't marry into this." She slipped the ring from her finger and set it gently on the altar, the sound of metal against wood ringing like a verdict. The audience gasped again. My brother looked at her, lost, broken. "Hannah, please," he whispered. But she turned away, tears streaking down her face. On the screen, Grandma's voice returned one last time, softer now, like she knew what this moment would become. "Blood is not a weapon," she said. "Use it to heal, or it will haunt you." Then the video ended. The projector clicked off and silence fell heavier than before. The deputies led the notary out through a side door. Vendors whispered to each other. Guests pretended not to be filming, though I could see the glow of phones raised discreetly between shoulders. The chandelier above us hummed faintly, its light flickering like the last heartbeat of something dying. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the envelope Mom had given me earlier. Inside was the neonatal photo, the hospital bracelet, the truth that had burned our family to the ground. I walked to Mom and handed it back. "You could have told me," I said quietly. And for the first time, she looked truly shattered. Not angry, not defensive, just small. I turned to the officiant, who still stood frozen at the pulpit, his Bible half open, unsure if the ceremony should continue. My voice didn't shake. "This ceremony is over." He closed the book. The sound echoed through the church, final and absolute. As I stepped out into the daylight, the judge's order and Grandma's will clutched in my hands. I felt something inside me snap back into place, like a bone finally set right after years of pain. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't revenge. It was truth. Outside, the wind off the parking lot smelled faintly of rain and pine. I opened the envelope one last time. At the bottom, beneath the hospital papers, was one more note in Grandma's handwriting, faded but unmistakably hers. "Go home to the lake. It was always yours." And for the first time since that 3:14 a.m. message demanding $15,000, I finally exhaled. And I finally truly breathed.